A compelling detective story, a cloak and dagger action, and a romantic drama, all these stories were taken from real life. The history of Kazakhstan is inseparable from the world history. Reflections on history, our version.
The Ghulja Diary. You should send a special person with a letter from the Western Siberia authorities to the Ghulja authorities and instruct him how to conduct the forthcoming negotiations. I found myself in China by chance. This explanation seems a bit strange if you know all the circumstances. Anyway, this is the first line of the Ghulja Diary. His first journey to Ghulja was not of great importance. We can say that during the journey he just tried what he could do. It was a kind of an insignificant intelligence operation. Well, it's doubtful that it was really insignificant because quite important events occurred just before the journey. There were a lot of spies in those regions, and Valikhanov had to perform the same part too. It's certain that the Empire General Staff needed quite an experienced person. He liked communicating with people who knew about the past, listened to songs and stories of people who lived there, and described it in detail in his diary. Chapter 1. A Special Person. Colonel Peremyshelsky, founder of Fort Verney, headed the mission. He was an educated officer who had studied together with Lermontov in Moscow University. He liked talking about Lermontov with his companions when they stopped somewhere to have late dinner. Probably he talked about him around a fire in the evenings, but Chokan didn't record it in his diary. Nothing is said about Colonel Peremyshelsky in his diary at all, which was quite strange. However, first we should pay attention to the historical background. In 1851, China and Russia entered into an agreement according to which Russian and Chinese merchants could trade with each other openly. Chinese authorities even provided special areas for construction of Russian trading stations which were called offices. The trade turnover increased significantly. Goods from Semipalatinsk started replacing similar Chinese ones. In 1854, dissatisfied merchants who, by some reports, were incited by British agents, burnt a Russian trading station, and it was a miracle that the ambassador managed to escape. Caravans were often attacked, and the relationship with China deteriorated. At the same time, Britain was approaching China actively. Against this backdrop, the Chuguchak disaster, as it was called in reports, became evident. It can be considered a result of rivalry between the Russian Empire and Great Britain. From the instructions of the Foreign Affairs Ministry, 1856. The affair concerning China must be settled in a friendly way, and troubled trade relationships should be resumed quickly. It was difficult and dangerous to conduct this mission. Thus, the presence of some unknown people in the Ghulja expedition was not ruled out. Peremyshelsky was a professional intelligence officer too. When Peremyshelsky was on holiday in Moscow, he was called to St. Petersburg, where Emperor Alexander personally gave him instructions. Suddenly, Valikhanov, who was an aide-de-camp to Gusfort Governor-General, appeared. The first Colonel, Peremyshelsky, police officer of the senior Zhuz Kazakhs, was appointed as the representative of Russia. Later, Chokan Valikhanov was given this mission. It is unknown what happened to Mikhail Peremyshelsky and why Valikhanov was involved in this mission. According to some versions, Mikhail tended to consume alcohol. It's said that Gusfort assigned his aide-de-camp to look after the lieutenant colonel. However, this version is not tenable. Even if the lieutenant colonel abused alcohol, he could conduct his given task professionally. Incidentally, he was assigned to start construction of the new Vernoye fortification near the border with China. It happened the same year when the Chuguchak disaster occurred. He was given the task to build a fortification which could help protect the region from the residents of Chokan. It was a military settlement. Chokan went through this fortification. However, no information about Peremyshelsky related to the journey to Ghulja, except for some initial reports, has been found in documents yet. According to the academic Markulan, Valikhanov was told to discuss all his actions with Ivan Zakharov, the consul, who was in Ghulja. He went to Ghulja to conclude an agreement on friendship, cooperation and trade. Valikhanov was only 21, and although he became appointed as a lieutenant in recognition of his merits, he wasn't experienced in conducting negotiations yet. Could he be given such a mission? Some scientists suppose that he could. He returned from a journey to Isikul, spent 5 days with Tizek Sultan in Altyn Yemel, and then went to Kapal. From there, a group was sent to the border to make the negotiators seem more important and influential. There were 75 Cossacks from the Kopal detachment, 50 Cossacks from the Lepsi post, a platoon of 120 soldiers, and a platoon of horse artillery battery in the group. At the same time, they ordered to strengthen the Uzhur detachment. In St. Petersburg, there were thought the presence of soldiers on the border could have a positive influence on the Chinese authorities. However, the mission was mainly described as an amusing journey in Chokan's diary. Probably it was because the lieutenant was interested in different matters, or because the young officer understood that not everything could be written in the diary. Chapter 2. A kaleidoscopic journey. They reached the border on the 1st of August 1856, and then a representative of China had to accompany the mission further. A mandarin entered the yurt, leaned forward and started saying his greetings in a sonorous voice, like an educated starling. He asked if we had had lunch, and then, as the Chinese say, he sniffed about our health, asked about our journey and sniffed about something else. During speaking, he did not change his posture at all and only sometimes spread his hands. Many pages of Valikhanov's diaries present outstanding examples of Russian travel prose. Valikhanov wrote that when crossing the Korgos River, they were attacked by a tremendous amount of mosquitoes, which cast a dark shadow. He wrote that although they wanted to move into a shadow because it was very hot, they couldn't enjoy being in this shadow. Chokan complained that their faces were covered with mosquito bites. They spent the night in Korgos. There was a provisions hamper under my head, and its corners hurt the back of my head. I slept like a sultan on soft sofas in his harem, touching tender shapes of some rose of enjoyment. I felt pressure under my head, but I had a dream that it was the snow-white hand of a beauty embracing my head. I was so annoyed when they woke me up and said that the camels had been stabled here. On the 5th of August, they arrived in Ghulja, which was the captured capital of the Dzungur Empire. In 1764, the Chinese established a city near the Ili River where the seat of the Dzungar Khans had been in order to strengthen their position in the conquered regions. They named the city Xin-Szqiang, which was known here as Ghulja. This information was according to Chokan Valikhanov. Every house is a representation of the whole empire and shows its closed borders and lack of interaction. A clay wall is built around every house as well as the whole city. It seems they barricaded themselves in order not to see their neighbors or talk to them. There were adobe houses with thatched roofs when Chokan Valikhanov was there. Judging by the diary, Chokan had quite an idle life there, as if he wasn't conducting any important mission. He went hunting, described people's lives in detail, including what they planted and ate and their everyday activities. The Chinese are extremely hard-working. There are a lot of apples, but they're not tasty, as well as many watermelons. The pears have a pleasant aroma. There are ordinary ducks, meat is cheap and costs only 4 kopecks. Chinese geese having a horn on their beaks are not tasty. He drew a lot of studied Chinese language and flirted with girls. Chokan was handsome and liked beautiful women. They called me a good lawyer, which meant the master. I think a fat Chinese woman found me handsome, too, since she turned her attention to me and gave me a pipe. However, I did not like her flat nose at all, since I'd been suffering because of my flat nose for a long time. I wish I could make it upturned somehow. Thus, I haven't paid attention to this woman. Chapter 3. The Finger of Surprise. They smell and look so good. I'll try to break off a piece of it now. It's like a wooden bun. I can't do it. Finally, I managed. Ghulja bread has always been famous for its whiteness. When Chokan Valikhanov was here, he found out the secret of this white bread. The reason for its soaking grains in water and then threshing them. As a result, the flour is white, but the bread made from it becomes stale quickly. The negotiations started on April the 11th. Valikhanov mentioned them describing an excellent dinner consisting of over 100 dishes. There was a lot of food, including cuttlefish and spiders, and a piglet dish, which was considered the best. However, Valikhanov could not try these dishes himself. He got ill, suffered from toothache, and nothing helped to relieve the pain. Chokan was ready for the journey and listened to what his friends told him. For example, his friend Grigory Potanin had visited Ghulja in order to bring salary to his colleagues. In spite of this, he was surprised so much that there he put his finger in his mouth and hoped that Allah would help him. For instance, cricket fights without rules made him express surprise. They took a cup and put inside 2 male crickets 2 fighters. These crickets started fighting it bitterly. Their battles were fierce. These insects live for a year. There are people who master bringing up a cricket. Thanks to their long experience, they learned how to extend the insects' lives. The Chinese made considerable advances in microbiology. On New Year's Day, a court educator comes with an insect in a pumpkin box and makes it sing the emperor's praises. Cockfights, persecution of cats, and the emperor's hunt are important for the Chinese and show their refinement, written in Valikhanov's diary. In addition, there was a detailed list of goods where the prices were included in the geography of the areas they went through when going to Ghulja. He marked the military settlements and many other objects there. The description of trade relationships, balance and finance and condition of fortresses, garrisons, ammunition, armament, personnel, etc., was all a spy's work. It wasn't just a diary, but rather a short encyclopedia written in clear and sometimes frivolous style. There was a short dictionary of Mongolian, Chinese, and Turkic words. There were legends including those about the Turkic people's origins. There were some stories from Chinese history too. In China, people are divided into Min and Chen. Min stands for common people, while Chen includes officials and means the king's servants. Incidentally, the Russian word chinovnik, which means an official, is derived from this. Some people say that it's derived from a chinovnik in church, a boy who reads in front of a bishop. The orders say it is derived from the Chinese word chen. Epilogue. Return to the flat steppes. When you find yourself in such an area, you admire it, but later you get tired of it. You want to return to the flat steppes and feel freedom again. From the Ghulja Diary, 1856, by Chokan Valikhanov. According to the complete works of Valikhanov, he finished writing the Ghulja Diary on October the 12th. However, it's unclear when the journey ended. According to some information, the agreements on paying compensation and resuming trade were reached. Most probably, he carried out some important assignments, but it wasn't described in detail. Returning from Ghulja, Valikhanov went on to Semipalatinsk, where he met his friend Dostoevsky, got acquainted with Semyonov Xin-Szqiang, and told him about Ghulja. 2 days later, he followed Semyonov-Tanshansky's advice and went to Kashgar. This journey overshadowed all the others.